Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. It is late February 2016 as I sit here in the Comic Den to record this episode. But I'm going to be talking about stuff that happened or was released in 2015. Yes, friends, this is the Longbox Review favorites of 2015. So the last favorites that I did, I decided to abandon the whole best of idea in favor of talking about what my guests at that time, what their favorites were, what our favorites were. And so, because I think that's just better to talk about the things that you enjoyed the most, instead of talking about what's best, what's not best. You know, that's so arbitrary. Not that talking about my favorites is not an arbitrary thing. It totally is, but it makes more sense to me, and so I'm running with that. So I have a bunch of categories here, and it's just me this time. No guests. I decided to scale back on this discussion and just talk about those things that are my favorites, which means I'm going to have quite a few in each category, or at least a few in each category. And I'll just get right to it. To start with, I decided, instead of favorite ongoing and favorite whatever like that, I decided to break it up into essentially smaller categories, if you will. Anyway, so I'm just going to start off with my favorites in the publishers category. And first up is, I'll just do DC first. And so I got two issues or two titles that are my favorites of 2015. And one of those is Astro City. This is by writer Kurt Busiek, and the usual penciler is Brent Eric Anderson. Sometimes there's some other artists that have done some fill-in issues. The colorist is Alex Sinclair, and of course the great cover art by Alex Ross. I love this. I love this title. I have always loved it from when I discovered it way back when, in the 90s. When Mr. Busiek decided to bring it to Vertigo, I was very excited to finally get to read another edition of this fine book. And the issues that have come out in 2015 have been no exception to that rule. This is just great superhero storytelling, and it's consistent and consistently good, which is a major reason why I chose this book. The other book from DC that I chose as my favorite of that publisher is, of course, Grayson. You know, when the fallout from the Forever Evil event, where Dick Grayson, to the public's eye, died, and then Bruce Batman decided to send Dick on a covert mission, and essentially setting up Dick Grayson as a super spy of sorts to go after Spiral. I wasn't too sure of where this was going. All I knew is I was intrigued, I was interested, and of course I bought it. And it's just been wonderful. So this is by Tim Seeley and Tom King doing the writing, with Mikel Janin doing awesome art. I was trying to think of the right word here as I was talking, and awesome is it, I guess. And that's an inadequate word for the art that this guy has been turning in month after month. Just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Of course, it helps that the colorist does an awesome job too, and that's Jeremy Cox. I believe for most, if not all, of the issues. I should have looked that up. Anyway, great stuff from Grayson. Now that we're coming to the end of some things at DC, considering that Rebirth is on its way, Grayson will no longer be around, and Dick Grayson will go back to being Nightwing, which, I don't know if people are surprised about it, or if they're just being too cynical about it. I expected that this would happen. I just wanted it to be later, I guess, because I was enjoying Grayson so much, especially in this last year. But I am a huge Dick Grayson fan, as you may know if you've listened to the podcast these last few years. And I'll try anything out with his character, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with him back in the costume. I will admit that I will miss Dick Grayson as a spy, dealing with Helena Bertinelli and Agent One. Is that right, or is it Agent Zero? I can't remember which one it is. But the super agent spy guy that Dick has been teaming up with in these last few issues have just been awesome stuff. Okay, on to Marvel. I got a couple of these as well. First up is Mark Waid, Chris Samney, and Matt Wilson's Daredevil run, which ended this last year. The last issue came out, it's cover dated November 2015, so that came out January, I think. Anyway, the majority of what I'm talking about, that creative team has just been, again, just like Astro City, consistently good at telling a great Daredevil story that has been going on for a while now, but you get basically the end of that story in 2015. Really good stuff. The new Daredevil edition with Charles Soule, and I don't remember the artist at the moment. They really have a lot to live up to, considering how great that Waid Samney run on Daredevil was. Another great, and again, so a lot of this has to do with consistency, I guess, because this is another great run by the creative team. This is Thor / Mighty Thor. So this is by Jason Aaron and Russell Dodderman, with Matt Wilson on colors on Thor, and also Mighty Thor. So yeah, the same creative team continuing on their great run, telling the story of especially the female Thor, Lady Thor, or just Thor. She's Thor now. Odin's son is no longer Thor. It's probably one of my top comics that comes out every month. Every time it comes out, or every time it gets delivered to my house, it is one of the first things that I read, because it is so strong in the storytelling. It is so entertaining. It's a great book, and if you're not reading if you're not reading Mighty Thor right now, which is the latest version of this book, you are missing out so much. I highly recommend, if you haven't read any of this run by these gentlemen, you really should go pick up the trades, because it's been phenomenal. So Image Comics has been putting out a lot of great books over the years, and 2015 was no exception. There are two, and I've talked about them before. Two that are consistently, again, there's that word, are my favorites every month coming out, and I look forward to reading these books. And they're right up there as if I was going to do a top 5 of all comics, these two books would be in those top 5. The first one is Lazarus, and this is by writer Greg Rucka. Well, how can you not have a great comic with Greg Rucka writing it? Let's see, the pencilers. Michael Lark is the usual penciler. There's been some other people helping out, with Santiago Arcas doing the colors. This is such a great near-future dystopian science fiction-esque story, where Greg Rucka is basically performing as a futurist, letting us know what the future may hold for us if certain things continue on the path that he sees them going towards. And if that isn't cryptic enough for you, I encourage you to go pick up the book, because it's been a wonderful read. And the second favorite book from Image is Velvet. This is by Ed Brubaker. Again, wonderful writer, with art by Steve Epting, and colors by Elizabeth Breitweiser. So this is a spy book. So apparently I'm really enjoying spy books from 2015. And this is just, it's set in the 1970s. So it's got that 1970s cynicism and distrust of the government vibe in it. But it's really a mystery, a murder mystery that the main character, Velvet Templeton, is trying to solve, involving someone that she had a relationship with. And it's just been really good. The Steve Epting art is so perfect for this book, and it's just again, it's a great read, and I highly encourage everybody to go pick up the trades for this book. And next, I have a bunch. Three. I've got three favorite other publisher category here. The first of which is, and again, I'm going to come back to this whole consistency thing. This is Letter 44 from Oni Press. This is written by Charles Sewell, with Alberto Albuquerque doing the art, and Dan Jackson doing the colors for the most part, I believe, of the run in 2015. But this is a speculative fiction, science fiction type story, where the whole reason for the Middle Eastern conflict is because the president of the United States, and it's not George Bush in this story. It is another, a made up president. He starts this whole thing to mask preparing for and being authorized to spend all sorts of money to contact and if need be combat alien life that they discovered in the asteroid belt. And so it follows this team. It's basically two stories. It's about the president, the newly elected president, who comes into this. So it'd be like President Obama coming into the situation that George Bush started, and then finding out that he campaigned to stop the conflict, and then he comes into the presidency, and the whole idea, Letter 44, is that the previous president traditionally writes a letter for the new president to kind of help orient him or wish him luck or whatever, just to have a few words for the new guy coming in to the presidency, or new woman for that matter. Like I said, the new guy comes in and he finds out the truth about why we were engaged in the Middle East. The other story is the scientists and military personnel who were sent to the asteroid belt to do first contact, to find out what these aliens are about, why they're there, what's going on, and the story goes from there. And this is, again, been a consistently entertaining book. I'm not a big fan of Mr. Albuquerque's art on it, but it's not something that's insurmountable. And just the style, I don't care for the exaggerated noses and whatnot. That's the only thing I can think of at the moment. So yeah, obviously, it's not a big deal. Anyway, it is, like I said, it's an entertaining read, and it's consistently good each and every issue. So I continue to buy it, and I continue to enjoy it. And similarly is, and it should be no surprise because I talk about it enough on the podcast and also on social media, but Rachel Rising by Terry Moore has been a wonderful read, and the art is just impeccable. It's so gorgeous. And it's billed as a horror story, and in some ways it is. The usual tropes of there's actually a satanic character in here. There are witches. There are monsters of various kinds, and not just supernatural. But it is the primary story is about the murder of Rachel, the titular character of the book. And unfortunately, I found out recently that Rachel Rising will soon be coming to an end in early 2016, and I am a sadder comic book reader for it, and so are you, even if you haven't read this book. Again, these are all books. Everything I'm going to be talking about here, I highly recommend that you seek these out if you have not done so already. The next one on my list for other is IDW's Star Trek series, the ongoing Star Trek series, featuring the characters and the universe, if you will, of the 2009 Star Trek, beginning in 2009 Star Trek movies by J.J. Abrams and others. This is written mostly by Mike Johnson. Roberto Orci has some credits in there, but I think Mike Johnson is the driving force there. There have been a bunch of different artists and colorists on here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's really the story that I'm reading of these Star Trek issues that really deserve attention. I've not always been a fan of the art in general on this book. Mostly because they try too hard to make the characters look like the actors from the show or the movies. And I understand why they're doing that, and I can appreciate the skill involved in doing it, but it also comes across as a little too, I don't know. They don't quite hit the mark, I guess, is the problem, and therefore it's like why not just have a stylized version of the way these characters look instead of trying to make them look like, Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto and the others. But regardless of that, this has been, I first got into this book in 2011 because I wanted to see how they were going to retell the original series episodes with this new cast, essentially. And it kept me coming back. It was interesting enough that I kept buying the issues, and then they expanded beyond the original series issues to the point where they're telling new stories now. Sometimes they'll go back to it. I think they did that in 2015 as well. But they mostly are telling new style stories or introducing old concepts again in a new way. And I really like what they've been doing, and I look forward to what what new Star Trek stories they're telling. And in part, I guess I'm reacting to this series because it's new Star Trek material. And the movies, I enjoy them, but I so miss the each and every week, at least through part of the year, of having a new Star Trek story being told to me in a television form, and we don't have that, obviously. So having this monthly comic is filling that gap for me, and it just so happens that it's also good as well. Okay, so those are essentially what I would refer to as my favorite ongoing series. But there were some limited series that came out in 2015. Either they came out fully in 2015, or they started or they ended in 2015. So I'm just going to count that as my favorite limited series. The first of which is a Marvel book. This is Thor's, which came out of the Secret War event. And I only got 2 of the tie-in miniseries, and this is one of them, but it was so good. It tells the story. Oh, I should talk about who did Thor's. So Jason Aaron wrote this with Chris Sprouse doing the art, and Marte Gracia doing the colors. But this is telling the story of all these various different universes, Thor's, as a core, they're essentially a police force for Doom in Doom World, and it's a murder mystery. People are killing various versions of Jane Foster, and one of the other Thors investigating this series of murders gets killed as well, and so it's up to what I believe is the Ultimate Universe Thor. He's the main character of this story, and comes down to him and some other people involved to help solve these murders and who's actually doing the killing. Really good story. I really enjoyed it. This next book is from IDW. This is Infinite Loop by Pierrick Collinet and Elsa, and that's the writer, and Elsa Charretier. I said this last time I talked about Infinite Loop on the podcast, but I know I'm murdering those names, but I apologize about that. Anyway, this was a great series. It didn't quite end as strongly as I would have liked, but overall, it was a treat. And you'd have to go back and listen to the episode in which I talked about Infinite Loop.
That was episode 86, Natch.
Mostly because the visually, the art, the storytelling in it was so engaging and inventive and unusual. The art itself reminded me a lot of Darwin Cook's style of art, but different, obviously different. But like I said, it was just a treat, a visual treat is what I'll say about this book. And it it involves time travel, and it involves love at first sight. It's a love story. It's a time travel story. It's a tale, David versus Goliath type situation. Just a lot of things thrown in there, and yet it works. It works very well, like I said, except for maybe the ending. But I really enjoyed that series. Like I said, some things in here I'm choosing because they ended in 2015, and this is the case for this book. This is Alex and Ada from Image Comics. This is written by Jonathan Luna with Sarah Vaughn, and Jonathan Luna doing the art, everything else essentially on this book. And this was a futuristic, near future tale, but it's a love story. So there you go. There's that again, of a guy and his robotic companion whose code is rewritten to be autonomous and to feel things on her own. So she becomes a living creature regardless of her origins. So it examines a lot of different things, not the least of which is relationships with created things, and also going against the politics of said things. There's just a lot of interesting things involved in this story, but you come to the story and you stay with the story because of the relationship between Alex and Ada. And while the ending ended in a way that I fully expected, I was okay with it because I so wanted that ending. There was a certain thing that I wanted to have happen, and while I wasn't surprised that it happened, I'm so glad that it did. So you can take that as you will. But again, I highly encourage you guys to go read this book. Next up is from DC Comics, The Multiversity, written by Grant Morrison and a bunch of different artists, not the least of which is Ivan Reis. Wow. If you're a fan of DC's multiverse, this was the book for you. It certainly was for me. It was great to see all these different Earths, all these different takes on the characters that we are familiar with. And it tried to get into a metafictional aspect about us, we readers reading this comic, and how reading this comic is a very bad thing for various reasons, which was an interesting way to sell this book. Some interesting commentary from Mr. Morrison. One of these days, I'm going to reread all these books and maybe talk about it here, because it was almost kind of like us being told off in a way. Or at least that's how I took it. But despite that, I really, really enjoyed this series, and I was really disappointed that DC didn't capitalize on this by opening up the floodgates, by opening up the doors, the doorways, the multiverse to the publishing lineup. More's the pity. I'm going to go back to Terry Moore and Abstract Studios with his special run, I think it was 4 issues only, of SIP, or Strangers in Paradise Kids version. So he takes these wonderful characters that he created in Strangers in Paradise, one of the best comic books ever done. You should go read it. And reimagines them as children in a sort of Peanuts-like style. And the adventures that they go through, there's little jokes, little Peanuts-style jokes along the way. But it was great to see these characters again in this new way. So I really enjoyed Terry Moore's SIP Kids. And I think the collected edition is either out or it's coming out soon by the time this podcast hits. And again, read Strangers in Paradise and then go read SIP Kids, and the payoff is so worth it. And finally, in the favorite limited series category, I will choose, of course, no surprise if you listen to the Danger Club examination that I did with Damien Sleepy Reader 666 late last year. I choose Danger Club as one of my favorite limited series. It ended in 2015 and ended in such a spectacular fashion. I won't go into details, but this was one of my favorite books of all time, not just 2015, and you guys should just go read it. Excellent work by Landry Q. Walker and Eric Jones and Rusty Drake on colors. So great work, ended wonderfully, and I hope to maybe someday talk to these creators about their work on that book. Okay, next category is my favorite trades. I have two here that I chose, and these were books that one of them actually did come out all in, the limited series, and the collection came out in 2015. The other book is something that started earlier, but I have read the first two volumes, and I have the third in my to read pile, but I read the first two in 2015, so I'm running with that. And that book is Deadly Class. This is by Rick Remender, writing Wes Craig on art, and Lee Lockridge doing the colors, which is interesting because the color palette of this book is very limited, but not in a I don't say that in a negative way. It's just it's the palette is limited, but it effectively tells the story. So Lockridge is doing a wonderful job. I don't want to insinuate that the limited palette is in any way a bad choice. Deadly Class was a big surprise for me because I didn't read it before. I knew about it. I knew it was coming out, but I didn't read it because I'm not a big Rick Remender fan. And I know a lot of people would take me to task for that, but everything of his that I've read up to this point, it just hasn't worked for me. I haven't engaged with it like I have other things. So, but at the constant urging of other people that I know, not the least of which is my good friend Travis, and some other folks on YouTube, they kept saying, "No, you got to read this book. It's a great book," and they were right. It's a very interesting story. It's about a bunch of kids who are being trained to be assassins, I guess is the best way to put it. But mostly it is the story of the relationship of the main character with a couple different girls in the story, and just how messed up all of these kids are, along with some over the top martial arts action type stuff. So I've really been enjoying reading that book. The other one is the collection of I think it's 7 issues. Yeah, 7 issues. So this is Secret Identities. This is written by Jay Faerber and Brian Joines, with art by, I'm going to say this incorrectly, Elias Karizes, and colors by Charlie Kirchhoff. I had wanted to get this in singles when I first saw it being solicited. This is from, both of these are from Image Comics. But for some reason, I passed on it, intending to get the trade. And boy, I was glad. I kind of was glad that I did, although, other than the fact that I was not able to read this as it was coming out and enjoying it in that way sooner. But reading the collected edition, was a lot of fun because I got the whole story all at once, and man, it was a good story. So basically, the premise of this is this guy, the superhero, quote unquote superhero, joins this group of superheroes with the intention of bringing them down. But that's basically the lead-in to this story, to this book. But what I really enjoyed about this, and I do plan to talk about this book in more specifics later, but it's all the characters. I like, if you listen to the commentary on Stray, Who Killed the Doberman trade paperback, you'll recognize this. But it's my love for examining these familiar superhero tropes and looking at them in new ways, and that's what Secret Identities does, and does really well. The art is really good. It's really good superhero style art. Great colors by Mr. Kirchhoff. So it's just a solid book. It was a really good read. I wanted to talk a little bit about my favorite art for books that came out in 2015. And I've already talked a little bit about some of these books and how I reacted to the art. So I won't go into great detail on some of these. For example, Infinite Loop, I already talked about that, how the art by Elsa Chartier, I just really like that art. It was, like I said, really inventive and wonderful, and Darwin Cook-esque. So there's that. There's also Mikkel Janin and Jeremy Cox's work on Grayson. Clean, great superhero work on that book. Terry Moore's Rachel Rising, beautiful black and white artwork. The guy can draw snow like I've never seen in a comic book. Not to mention just the beautiful characters. I'm not just talking about the women. The body shapes. He's got so many different styles of people in these books that it's refreshing to see that. They're distinctive. So there are sometimes one of these books that I'm going to talk about here, just in a cursory way, but the art in it, while I enjoy it, I can't tell some of the characters apart. They're different characters, but I look at them and I go, is this character that I've already read 2 pages before? No, it turns out to be a different character. I don't like that, and I don't have that problem in Terry Moore's work. Sandman Overture. So about, I think, half of the books for that limited series that was supposed to come out much sooner than it did in its entirety. Whatever, I don't care. It was, by Neil Gaiman, revisiting. It's kind of a prequel to the Sandman series, but the art by J.H. Williams III. The guy is a phenomenon unto himself. It's just gorgeous to look at. It's a feast for the eyes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go pick up anything by J.H. Williams. His Batwoman run, the Sandman Overture stuff. I know he's done some other things, but those are the only 2 things that are springing to my mind at the moment as I'm talking. Just beautiful stuff. I challenge you to not like his work as a comic book. I'm going to say it, legend he's a modern day legend in our midst. So there you go. Throwing down the gauntlet. The other book I have here is Saga for the Fiona Staples work. I have talked about my love of her art in that title before, but it bears mentioning again. Again, solid, consistent, beautiful art. This artist can draw emotion so well in a static form, unlike nearly anybody else that I've ever seen in comic books. It's amazing what she can do with a few simple lines to convey these characters' emotions. It's a sight to behold, I tell you. And I will also, I almost hesitate to talk about this, but if you haven't read the Star Trek New Visions book from IDW, this is John Byrne's Star Trek series, and they come out, a few times a year, and it's basically John Byrne creating new Star Trek stories set in the original series era, not the new J.J. Abrams Star Trek, but the original series with Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and everybody. And he tells it in a fumetti style, which is to say he takes stills from the original series, from all 79 episodes, and puts them together to tell a new story. And you're probably thinking, that's not art. And I will say, yes, it is. It's just a different style of art. He's just putting these things together. I just love it. Mostly I react to it because it's new Star Trek, and it's it is actually Star Trek. It's images from the series. But I have to say, I'm enjoying the book immensely because of the way that John Byrne is putting things in here. And it's not just he's taking this stuff and telling it in a different way. He actually is putting in new photographs. There was an actor, I forget his name now. Wow, I should look this up. Anyway, there's an actor he brought in and got him all dressed up and took photos of him and put him in the story to tell this new tale. There's some digital manipulation going on here, because sometimes you can really tell that this doesn't quite fit, but it's John Byrne putting in new art in this book. So I just wanted to mention it because I've been enjoying that book so much. And you can argue with me if that's art or not. Go ahead. Okay, most disappointing. I usually try to keep things, really positive here, talking about things that are good and fine and I like, but there are a few things that happened in 2015 that I read that I wanted to talk about. And two of them are books that I just did not like. I was really disappointed in where or how these books were done, or how the story was told. But the first one, and I won't talk about this much, I'll just mention them, but Scarlet Couture from Des Taylor and Titan Comics. This was to me, 2015 was kind of like the year of the spy, because you had Grayson, you had this book. What was the other one? Oh, Velvet, duh. But so I saw this book and I thought, oh, this would be kind of fun. I kind of like, I've seen some of Des Taylor's stuff online. Some of the there was a bunch of Supergirl stuff that he posted one time. I like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Kind of retro style looking art. So I decided to try this out. Man, this was really, really difficult to get through. Des Taylor is a fine artist, but as a storyteller, it was not good. So that's all I'll say about it. I do not recommend you read this book, so take that as you will. Another book that's similar in vein, this is Welcome Back from Boom Studios. The premise of it sounded good. It's kind of like it had a Highlander, if you're familiar with that movie series or even the TV series, the spinoff, the Highlander series. It had that vibe to it with kind of like a Kill Bill sensibility to it as well. But man, it was just all over the place. Not just in terms of the art, because they brought in a different artist, it looks like, to finish the story. Originally, this was a 4-issue miniseries, so even though after the first issue, I was enjoying it, but I got to the second issue, and everything just fell apart for me, just because the story doesn't make sense if you scrutinize it too much. It was a little too derivative, like I said, of Highlander, but I wasn't sure where it was going or why it was going in this way. It was just weird, and then it became an ongoing series, and then I just saw in the latest solicitations that it will be ending with, I believe, issue 8. So I can't say too bad about that. What I can say too bad about is the end of this wonderful series from Vertigo, Coffin Hill by Caitlin Kittredge and Inaki Miranda, with Ava Dela Cruz doing the colors. This was a phenomenal book, and it's too bad that it didn't find an audience, because I love the hell out of this book. I think about half of the 20 issues came out in 2015, And it's really too bad because this was telling a really interesting witch story, which is interesting because we have black magic, which involves witchcraft, coming from Image Comics right now. But so there's an audience for this kind of story, I'm pretty sure. But for some reason, this book did not connect. And the art of this book, and I've talked about it before. Travis and I talked about it in which episode was that?
That was episode 71.
Anyway, it's too bad that book got canceled before its time. This next category is my most surprising reads of 2015. And some of these books started out, they only had a few issues in 2015, but regardless, the impact on me as a reader, or they made an impact on me as while I was reading these books. So I just wanted to mention them because they might be surprising to you if you've not read them. First of all is this, what I thought was, I first thought was a mini-series, but anyway, it doesn't matter. This is The Paybacks. This was from Dark Horse. I believe the first 4 issues came out through Dark Horse, but then no more issues were solicited, and then I found out that the creators of the book are putting it out elsewhere, and I don't know that we've heard where that is yet. Anyway, see, the creative team on The Paybacks is Donnie Cates and Elliot Rahl, the writers. Jeff Shaw is the artist, and Lauren Affey as a colorist, at least on issue number 1. This, I don't tend to like superhero parody, at least, any longer than a short dosage. I enjoy a joke or two, at superheroes' expense. But if you're going to do a long form joke, then I'm not all that interested. So I went into this book a bit trepidatiously, because this is a group of former heroes, I guess. They become a repo squad is what the description is, and so they go after other superheroes who borrowed money to get their superheroic career going, and then when they're not able to pay back their loan, the squad goes after these heroes and either repos their stuff to pay it back, or, and this is the confusing part, it seems like instead of just taking all the stuff, they end up recruiting, usually against the superhero's will, the superhero into the squad. So the cover of the first issue has a Batman-like character with his Batmobile-like car being towed away, and he's on his knees crying up to the heavens. No. Anyway, so I was afraid it was going to be like a one-note joke, but it turns out it's not. So these creators have actually put together this nuanced story about these characters who are doing this essentially against their will to pay back their loans. And there's a couple characters where things turn rather dark for them in this situation, and so there's some good pathos in this story. So I'm looking forward to, I think, like I said, there's been 4 issues that have come out from Dark Horse. Maybe it was only 3. Anyway, I'm looking forward to when The Paybacks returns in whatever or wherever it shows up next. The other most surprising is Deadly Class. I already talked about this, so I'll briefly recap. It's just that I did not expect this book to be as wonderful as it is because of my reaction to Rick Remender's work in general. But he's told a story, and the art team has put together a really interesting, visually really interesting looking book. So I'm looking forward to reading more of that. I'm getting those in trades now. The other 2 I have here are from DC Comics. One is Martian Manhunter, and I think only 3 issues came out in 2015, but this is by Rob Williams, who's doing the writing, and Eddie Barrow's doing the pencils, and then some other inkers and colorists involved during the run of the series so far. But I enjoy the Martian Manhunter character in general, So I was willing to give this series a chance, and it didn't disappoint because it went in a direction. It starts off rather in an unexpected way, and then it turns on a dime, essentially. It turns the story turns on you, and it goes off into this one area that I wasn't expecting, involving basically a multiple personality type situation involving the Martian Manhunter that I really liked. And even though I'm still enjoying the book, I'm kind of concerned that those personalities will go away, and that's too bad because they're really interesting. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But it was a surprise for me how much I enjoyed reading this book, when I kind of expected it to be like, yeah, I'll give it 6 issues and probably be another typical superhero Martian Manhunter tale, and it wasn't. So I enjoyed that very much. Similarly, Constantine the Hellblazer, which is the second series after the New 52 launch of DC Comics involving this character. I got the first, like I just mentioned, I got the first 6 issues of the first volume of the New 52 version of Constantine, and it was okay. It was all right. I decided not to stick with it. But here we are with Constantine the Hellblazer, and this is by writers Ming Doyle with James Tynion IV, and art mostly by Riley Rossmo. There have been some other people involved as far as the art and a few issues, but it's the Riley Rossmo art that really makes this book for me. I didn't include it as favorite art, but I should have, now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it right now. But it's been an enjoyable read. This take on Constantine it's slightly different than what we've seen before in the new 52 version, but enough to be recognizable and enjoyable. But like I said, it's the art that really sells this book for me. And how many issues are we at now? And again, I think about half the run so far, what came out in 2015. We're at issue 9, I think, and I'm still enjoying it. It's so good. One of the things I really enjoy about this book are the 2-page spreads, which you have to. They've done this a couple times now, where you have to turn the book 90 degrees and view them in a landscape fashion. But it's not just 2 distinct pages landscaped, like they did on a few issue run of Batman and Superman, the video game storyline, I think. Anyway, regardless, what they're doing in Constantine the Hellblazer is that you start at the top of the top page, and it actually is like one big panel, one big comic book sized panel where you follow the action going down through the pages. So it's really lovely stuff. There's so much going on in the background. It's just great storytelling, comic book storytelling. So there you go. Okay, we have reached the end of the favorites categories with this one, and this is my favorite covers of 2015. It's not necessarily that these covers are real extravagant or are unusual necessarily, even, but for whatever reason they spoke to me, and after having gone through, a good number of books. I don't remember how many I bought in 2015, but these are the ones that I chose as my favorites, and here is why. So the first one is Batman and Robin, number 38. This cover is by Patrick Gleason, Mick Gray, and John Cleese. And so I think what you're going to hear me say a lot is that I respond to a lot of splashy colors, because this is the cover, and I'll try to briefly describe it. This is the cover with Damian Wayne Robin on it, and he's tearing open his shirt, his white shirt, to show his Robin costume underneath, and bullets are flying at him and bouncing off, all squished and everything, because this is when he returned from the dead and he had some superpowers. So eventually he was basically a small version of Superman. But what I really like about it, besides that composition and that kind of sly smile on Damian Wayne's face, which is so typical of his character, but I like the color composition. So in the background, it's all yellow, and his tunic, of course, is red, and his tie is green. So you get all of the major colors of the Robin costume on this one cover, and mostly big splotches of color. So I just really like that. And being the Robin fan that I am, you put those three colors together, and I immediately, it evokes Robin to me. And this is a quintessential Robin cover. Okay, so next up, and so this is also, again, color is going to be a major theme here because this is one of my favorite covers of 2015. This is Danger Club number 7. And so what you have here on the cover is, and I talked about this cover on one of the Danger Club, probably the last one, the last part that I released, because we have the magician here on the cover doing his magic thing. But what is really awesome about this cover is all of the colors, and you get quite a bit of a rainbow effect. Well, somewhat of a rainbow effect, because you, at the very top of the cover, it's the yellowish tones, and then it goes into reds, and then into pinks, violets, and then dark indigos here, and it's sort of fading into black at the very bottom. So you get that nice range of colors on that cover, and it's very cool looking. And then of course you just have the magical effect erupting from the magician's eyes as he's casting a spell here, and that looks like there's an earth in between his hands in front of him. It's just really cool. And I forgot to tell you who it's by. This is by Eric Jones, who is the primary artist on here. So it just says cover artist Eric Jones, but I have to didn't Rusty Drake have anything to do with the cover or the colors? Because that's his usual thing. But I'm looking at Comic Book DB, and all it says is Eric Jones for the cover artist. Okay, next on my list of favorite covers is The Fade Out, number 10, and this is by artist Sean Phillips. And this is it's basically a floating head cover with the Fade Out logo, which is blood kind of dripping down the left side of the cover, which is usual for this book. But what I like about it is we got one of the characters here, and I've forgotten her name. She's kind of like the assistant to one of the major characters in the book. Anyway, so it's her head, her smiling face, and her hand is in front of her. She's holding a cigarette. But what's really cool about this is just it's very Norman Rockwell-esque, I'll say. And it's just lovely. I mean, it looks like Mr. Phillips took a photograph and just turned it into an art, a painting of this woman. So it's just beautiful, is all it is, and very rendered very well. In a very realistic style. Like I said, it's very photographic in the way that it looks. So it's just a wonderful little cover, and it belies a couple things here. It belies the story itself, because the story is about murder and cover up, and just the seedy underbelly of the Los Angeles film industry. But it also underlies or underscores the. I always felt like this character. Gosh, I wish I should have looked up her name, but she always knew more than she kind of let on. And I always felt like there was more depth to this character. There was a story of her own that they could have delved into in this series, and maybe maybe Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips will come back to that at a certain or in the future and in a different fade out story. Anyway, I just really like that character and thought that there was more to her. And I think that this, I'm reading into this, but I think that this cover kind of shows, she's all smiles on the outside, but there's something going on here with this woman. And you probably want to be very careful when you're around her. I've been talking a lot about Grayson in this Favorites of 2015, and this is no exception. The cover to issue number 9. This is by Mikel Janin. It's just a lovely cover. It's as far as colors go, though, the background is white. There's this kind of radar, these arcs going off of the center, up and down in a column in the middle, and then you got the 3 characters in the middle of the cover, and then sort of it looks like watercolor, kind of splashes of red coming out of the middle and just kind of dripping down the sides of the cover. It's really different looking for this kind of a book. But you got Grayson in the middle, and he's wearing this charcoal suit with a blue shirt and black tie, and he's got his fighting sticks out there, and then you got Agent 1 next to him, and he and Helena Bertinelli on the other side in the background as well, and they're both looking away from Grayson, although Agent 1, his face is kind of pointing away, but his eyes are kind of focused on Grayson. And it's just a lovely drawing. And speaking of a more realistic look, sort of a photographic look, this is sort of like that. Not as much perhaps as Sean Phillips did on the fade out cover, but it's very well done. And it's definitely very striking. If you were going to look at this on the stands, it would definitely definitely call out to you. You would notice it, in other words. Very well done. And then finally, I have the cover to Lazarus number 14 by Owen Freeman instead of Michael Lark. And this is, again, so not only colors am I responding to, but apparently more photographic style type covers, because what we have here is Forever, the Lazarus of the story, diving into some water. And so the majority of the cover is kind of dark, as if she's going into water at night, and there's a light source up above her that's illuminating her, and you get to see her very clearly in this murky depths, but or not, maybe not so murky, but definitely dark water as she's going into it. But it's just a lovely cover. Like I said, it's very photographic in its style. But I think I'm responding to the light aspects of this cover. So you got like I said, you got that light source illuminating her from above, and it's just the way that the artist has depicted the light, and you even see the little bubbles of water around her that's all lit up too. It's just again, it's kind of like the antithesis of the Grayson cover, which is mostly white with some color in it. This one is mostly dark, really dark shades of blue. Maybe even some gray. Yeah, there's some gray in there. And then you got this really one spot in the sort of the upper right corner of the cover, which is white or white-ish. Again, an evocative cover. So all these were just really, really good. Okay, well that's all I have as far as my favorites for 2015. But I did want to talk a little bit about the things that I'm looking forward to in 2016, in the remaining 10 months that I have of the year. So there's a few books that I'm looking forward to reading the rest of. Let's see here. And all but one of them are limited series, definite limited series. The other one is a long-running series that's finally coming to an end in 2015. Let's see. So the first one is Venus, which is a miniseries, I believe, from Boom that I'm reading. It's a science fiction story about some people sent to Venus from the United States because there's an arms race in space, and certain countries are taking over certain of the terrestrial planets. And I think China got to Mars in the story first, and so therefore America wants a planet of its own, and Venus is the next viable one. And so this team is out there trying to set up a base, I think it is, and things go from bad to worse there. But I like the science fiction story. There's some sabotage and people just trying to survive in this hostile environment. So I just really like that kind of a story, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends up. I would even read this as an ongoing if they converted it into one, based on what I've read of the first 2 issues. Then there's Strange Fruit. This is the Mark Waid and J.G. Jones series about the Superman type character coming down to encounter 1930s racial inequality and what that means. It's a beautiful looking book. The subject matter is somewhat uncomfortable in some aspects, but I think it's an interesting story, and I want to see where it ends up. I don't know what happened to it. Just got the first couple issues and then nothing. So I'm waiting. Similarly, is another limited series, Sirens by George Perez. Not the best story, I have to say, of what I've read so far. I think there's only a few issues left of this series, but I'm looking forward to seeing the art, at least, of this story, and of course just kind of seeing how the story ends up. But what's with these books where they start off really strong and they got a lot of oomph behind them, a lot of press, and then nothing happens. I don't understand that. And then finally, the last book I'll mention is The Sixth Gun. So this is the series by Colin Bunn, the writer. Brian Hurt is the penciler, and it looks like he does other things too. Anyway, so this has been, like I said, a long running series. I think it launched in 2010, and we got up to issue 47, I believe, around May of 2015. I'm gonna guess. And here we are. It's 2016, and the issue 48 has been solicited, so we get the final 3 issues, 48, 49, and 50, coming in 2016. So I'm really looking forward to reading the end of this really fun and interesting story. If you're not familiar with it, you should check it out. Definitely get the trades. It's a Western, but it's got a lot of magical qualities to it, mysticism. It's really cool. That's all I'll say about it. But I'm really looking forward to seeing where that ends up. I'm also interested in knowing what's going to happen with Dick Grayson in the DCU. I already know post the new Rebirth thing that he's going to go back to being Nightwing. But I mentioned before, he's one of my favorite characters, and so I want to know the circumstances as to why he's out of the spy game and back into the costume, and what does that mean overall in the Bat universe and the DC universe as a whole. Considering that everybody thinks he's dead, obviously he'll be back, and there'll be explanations and whatnot. So I'm just curious in general how that's going to work out. So, and I hope they do something interesting with it. Ditto on the Titans, the Teen Titans or New Teen Titans or whatever, considering that we have Titans Hunt, and I want to know exactly what's going to happen with with my Teen Titans, pre-New 52, pre-Flashpoint Titans. What does that mean for Titans, given that we have Titans Hunt, and some of those concepts seem to be coming back, and then what happens post-Rebirth. And again, ditto on the Justice League. So when I was preparing for this episode, the news, when I wrote this thing down about the Justice League, the news hadn't hit yet about Jeff Johns and his announcement about Rebirth. And So now I know that Geoff Johns is going to be off of Justice League after issue 50, which is really too bad because I've really enjoyed his work for the most part. There's been a few spots that were not as strong, but the run, his run on Justice League has been a pretty strong one, I think. And the Darkseid War story, this latest one, has been really, really good. So I was before I found out that he was leaving, I was wondering what's going to happen post Rebirth with the Justice League. What were Geoff Johns' plans after that story, the Darkseid War? And now I know he's not going to continue that. So I don't know if I'll be going along with Justice League. It obviously depends on post Rebirth, who is on the book, and what kind of story are they going to tell. So we shall see. I'm also looking forward to more Thor. With that team and the characters involved. Velvet and Lazarus, which are two of my very favorite books. I just want more of those. Especially Velvet, I want more and more consistent release dates or releases of that book. And more of Tom King. I want to see more of Tom King in comics. So he was the co-writer on Grayson. He also did a few solo stories on that title. All very cool. He has a very interesting take on storytelling. His Omega Men is, while somewhat hard to read at first, once you get past those first few issues and what kind of story he's telling, and in the way that he's telling it is just very interesting. He has his Sheriff of Babylon, I think it is, the series from Vertigo, which started off very strong. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of that. And his work on Vision for Marvel this year has been just freaking amazing. Again, he does not tell the same kind of story on all these books. They're all done from a narrative standpoint differently than the others. And I really appreciate that. And so I'm really curious to see where Tom King goes and what he does from now on. How does he continue to stretch artistically, and what kind of stories will he be delivering to us? So I'm really looking forward to that. I already do know that he's signed that exclusive deal with DC Comics, which is great. It was nice seeing him do one of my very favorite Marvel characters, the Vision. But I prefer my favorite creators, my favorite writers and artists to be playing in the DC sandbox in general. And finally, a couple things I'm looking forward to con-wise. Let's see, in early April 2016 is the Emerald City Comic-Con, which will be the 7th year in a row that I've gone to the Emerald City Comic-Con. And I'm just really looking forward to that. Nathan Fillion will be there, and I'm a big fan of his. But there's a lot of really cool people from the comic side that will be there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those people and interacting with them. And I love going to the panels. I just like it. I like it a lot. And my family goes with me, so it's a big family trip. It's kind of like a mini vacation that we all enjoy. So I'm looking forward to that. And I pulled the trigger this year, and I am going to Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina in June. So I have the tickets to the show, which were really cheap. I was amazed at a 3-day show how much they are charging for that. I got my hotel, and now all I have to wait on is hopefully a sale for the airplane tickets, because oh my God, those are expensive. Yikes. I traveled last year. I went to Pennsylvania for the Comic Geek Speak anniversary, and that was not as expensive as flying to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I don't know what the deal is, but not only is it expensive, most of the flights takes 12 hours or more, 12 to 14 hours travel time to get to this place. From where I would fly out of. I don't get this. I don't understand it, and I don't like it. So there better be a sale. God, I hope there's a sale, because I really want to go to the show. all I've heard over the years is what a great show it is, what a great comic book con this really is. And I'm really looking forward to experiencing that. I'll be going to that by myself. So if you are a listener that will be going to the Heroes Con in June, let me know. I'd like to talk to you. And if you have any tips for me as far as the con and what to do while I'm there, that kind of stuff, please let me know. And finally, I want to, my parting words here, I just want to say that I'm very thankful for all of you. One of my favorite things in this last year was conversing with many of you, basically on Twitter, but sometimes through email. It's just been great. I really enjoy that kind of interaction, and I crave it more. So, let me know if you have any thoughts about my favorites of 2015. Tell me what your favorites of 2015 were. And you can always do that, of course, by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com, or you can just hit me up on Twitter at longboxreview. And that is all for 2015. Looking forward to great comics, great conversation in 2016. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.